From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex podcast episode of the day. Stephanie Baudhuin on the Riderflex podcast. How you doing, Stephanie?
Good. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing fine. You know, for the listeners that have listened for a while, they know that I'm in northern Colorado. I don't know if they have any idea where Johnstown, Colorado is, but just south of Loveland, kind of southeast of Loveland. I'm doing my homework on Crummies Meatless Crumble, doing my homework on Stephanie, I'm studying the website. I'm looking around. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that a Milliken, Colorado address? I'm like, holy shit. She's like 2 minutes from me.
We're neighbors.
How about that? Yeah. For everybody that doesn't know, Milliken and Johnstown, two little former farm towns that are now kind of bedroom communities, I guess, but just north of Denver. Anyway, good to see you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
I want to get into this Crummies Meatless Crumble. Now, just a heads up, I'm a meat eater, but that's okay. I'm still fascinated on the. Before we get into the company, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some family background, where you grew up, some personal history, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So I've lived in Colorado most of my life, but I was actually born in Anchorage, Alaska. I was lucky enough to have my parents, start a family there and spend a little bit of my childhood in Anchorage. And then we moved to Colorado like 95. And I don't see myself going anywhere else. Love this state. I've got family in the Western Slope, kind of by Grand Junction, Longmont area. Went to Lyons High School near Longmont, another small, little used to be small, sleepy little town. That's definitely growing as well as Johnstown.
Lyons High School. How many people in your graduating class?
52.
What? 52. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very
good.
Yeah.
Going from a class of 52 to college was a little bit of a shock, which everyone told me it would be, going into 200 plus auditoriums for learning. But I made it through with a communications degree. Actually ended up graduating from UNC over in Greeley with a communications degree. And, my family background is super outdoorsy. I was lucky enough to, go camping and hiking a lot of my childhood, and kind of being in Colorado, you probably hear those things a lot, but it's just a really, really super place.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
Yes. Hobbies, besides, working on this business, which takes up a lot of time, I also craft. Like, I'm always trying to be creative in ways. I make greeting cards and Christmas gifts, and just try and DIY if I can. Yeah.
So you had a little creativity, and you were into arts and crafts and creativity. That was kind of a hobby for you while you were getting your degree in communications, I guess.
Definitely. And
okay.
I was working customer service jobs a lot, like anything from a cashier to a bank teller, which was great. With the communications degree, I was maybe working in my field per se. But I just felt like I had, some talents that weren't being utilized, and decided to go after I graduated to get a graphic design degree from the Art Institute. And so I kind of got into graphic and web design, and then got into the print industry. And that's where I was when I came up with this business idea. So now I'm doing that.
I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. So you were at Circle Graphics in Longmont.
I was, yeah.
And you were working there. Now, before we go down that road, let me ask you this. Are you married, kids? What's the family life like right now?
Yeah, I am married. My husband also is a small business owner. We lived in Milliken for about 10 years. No kids, but we do have 2 dogs. I know everyone kind of follows that with it. We have 2 dogs, but they are our children.
Well, so you're both entrepreneurs.
Yes, we are,
Wow. That can be exciting and stressful all
absolutely,
at the same time.
Especially because we're both working from home now all the time, more than usual. So it's a balancing act for sure. But it's been.
Do you share do you have your own little room, your own little office? Does he have his own little space?
We're taking this over. He does wood door restoration, so his life is kind of in the garage in his shop. So he does
gotcha.
A lot of his work down there. Yep.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's pretty cool. I respect the fact that you're both entrepreneurs. Do either one of you? Well, does he have employees? Before we get into your stuff, does he have employees?
He has in the past, but not currently. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. So you both are. All right. So anyway, you're at Circle Graphics. You're doing your thing. you're there. Tell me what happens. Walk us into this. How did this start? Were you a vegetarian from birth, or just walk us through this transition?
Yeah, coming from an outdoorsy family, I was not a vegetarian by
Right.
birth. Yeah, it was started in 2017. I went plant-based. It was a lot of things went into it. The movie Oakjaw on Netflix. Not sure if you're familiar. It
I'm
was
not.
sort of a turning point. It's a ficticious story about, kind of a world where we're breeding these super pigs, and it kind of follows the life of one of them.
Oh,
And there's, a little girl involved, and their friendship, and it had all the elements of of a tearjerker, but also,
oh,
a somewhat not so far-fetched
gotcha.
storyline in my opinion. And living in Johnstown, we are surrounded by a lot of agricultural
Big time.
operations, a lot of feedlots, and
Mhm.
so I
Yep.
pass about five a day at least. And it was
Right.
sort of a combination of just, okay, I'll give this a try, let's see how it goes. My husband did not go plant-based. I will put that out there too, so I added another wrench in that balance. But super supportive. I was actually working at CSU at the time where I actually came up with Crummies. I'd left Circle Graphics and was
Okay.
at Colorado State University working in their print shop, which
Okay.
was a great experience. But once you get a spark or an idea,
Mhm.
you really, really, you do yourself a huge favor by following through with it. So I'm happy to say that I'm doing this full time now, and it's
So you left. You quit your job at CSU.
I did in
Woo!
February,
Ooh.
February of last year. So either the best timing or the worst timing. I don't know. I think it's the
Oh,
best, but yes.
wow. You quit your job at CSU to pursue your dreams with Crummies, and then
Right.
30 days later, COVID hit. Oh,
Thank you. It was yeah, super just like, what? Okay,
oh,
here we go. Here we go.
well, you had there had to be some moments in March and April where you're like, oh shit, okay,
There's
yeah,
there's
this
still moments, Steve. There's still moments. you know, it's
you're calling
but
CSU. You're like, never mind.
right.
I
Maybe. Yeah, it was I certainly had to go full force. Like, I knew what I was doing. I'd probably look back and be like, maybe this wasn't the best decision, but that's an entrepreneurship journey, and I'll take
well,
it.
how did it? All right, so you're at CSU. Are you like looking? Are you not happy with the food you're finding? Are you starting to make your own? Walk us through that part? How does that
Right.
happen?
So when I went plant-based and my husband didn't, we were really struggling with nightly meals,
Okay.
and especially Taco Tuesday was a huge deal in our
Okay.
house, and
Okay.
it still is. And we were looking at some of the meatless crumble options at the grocery store, and just really wasn't super impressed with the ingredient list.
Mm.
Really chemically focused, a lot of things I didn't recognize. I was like, well, why am I trading, beef, one ingredient, for 20 in some cases? And it just didn't make sense. And I wasn't looking for something that bled like meat or looked like meat. I just wanted that versatility, and so we
Okay.
decided to go forward and come up with our own. And Crummies is 7 simple ingredients from the land, not the lab, is what I like to say. You can recognize all of our ingredients, and just super delicious.
So, are you kind of a cook? Or were you guys like either one of you guys like chef type? Like, hey, did you have a lot of experience in getting all these ingredients and like putting something together?
My husband did most of the cooking back then. Now the kitchen's kind of my domain, and I
Okay.
have taken that over. But no, the learning curve to become a food producer in this industry was a huge undertaking. I was lucky enough to have a lot of mentors and friends that were already in the food industry that kind of helped me navigate the licensing and facilities and all that, which has been super, super helpful. It's
What
really,
happened at first? Were you just making it for you? Were you thinking I'm going to make this for me, or and then it turned into, hey, maybe I can sell this,
yeah.
or were you thinking I can sell this from the very beginning?
No, from the start, we were just making batches, throwing them in the freezer and pulling them out, every Tuesday or whenever we
Okay.
wanted to make spaghetti or anything.
Okay.
And then, there's obviously a growing market for plant-based
Mhm,
meat
mhm,
alternatives, and
mhm.
that was hard to ignore. So we were just like, hey, why not, this local girl from Milliken could sell this. And so I just decided to sign up for the Greeley Farmers Market in our early stages, and just went out there, sold out my first market. It was
really,
it was super positive feedback. And
how much was that booth? How much was that booth in the first market? I'm just curious. Was that like 800? What was that?
No. Greeley is about a couple hundred for the whole season.
All right,
so you sign up for the whole season.
How many packs of did you have them in packages?
Yeah, I had it in Ziploc bags at that point, and it was I had 40 pounds on me, and was just like, let's just see how it goes. And
sold them all,
and really got in Greeley, it's a huge huge meat eating county, as you can imagine.
I mean, Will County has probably got more meat eaters in it than
And I'm still kind of navigating a lot of that, a lot of the opinions and attitudes towards me. But, I always will thank Greeley Farmers Market for getting us our start.
Sold out. Were you like, you guys that came home, you're like, holy cow, we have something here.
I came home that day and wanted to quit my job. But, I had my family just like, okay, hold on. Like,
calm down.
Hold on. Yeah. So I did. That was back in May of 2019. So I did wait till February.
Well, then what'd you do next? Did you start going on social media? How'd you start selling it? Did you like, okay, we got to get a website up, we got to get our social media? What'd you do?
Well, luckily with my graphic design and web design background, I was able to throw a website up. Because I think a lot of folks, Facebook and social outlets are great, but it's really important to have like a website, kind of your main storefront. It was not a storefront at first. I wasn't selling online until COVID hit. I wasn't sure if people were going to want me to come to their house and deliver this stuff, which is kind of the norm right now. And I feel a little foolish that I didn't do this from the beginning. But now you can order Crummies online, as well as vegan tamales that we started making, which has been amazing. Those started this year because we couldn't sample. And I decided I had to give some, my customers something they could take home and eat right away, to try our product. So we started making them into vegan tamales.
So you're selling direct to the consumer. They can order it. They can order it off your website. Are you selling on Amazon yet or no?
Oh, no, it is frozen. So the chill chain, as they call it, has been a little difficult to navigate. I am shipping it personally. I actually got involved with the Colorado Department of Agriculture, who's working with small businesses to help them with UPS rates.
I see.
So I was able to do that. And now I can ship, on unlimited means, but otherwise I just deliver it to your door. If you're in Northern Colorado, I deliver it to your door.
It's cheaper for you to personally get in your car and deliver it right now than it is to go through UPS.
It is. And I hope that changes, or I'm constantly looking to innovate that and network and find better ways to do this. I want it to be affordable for my customers as well.
Now your margins are obviously a lot better if you sell direct on your website, and that helps with the cost of the delivery. But let me go back. Did you first sell wholesale, and who was your first customer? Hayes Market in Johnstown?
Yeah, so the Hayes Market was our first wholesale account. We're at the Johnstown and Berthoud locations. Huge thank you to the Hayes brothers. They really, gave us our first grocery placement, which was huge, and it felt amazing. And it's kind of one of those, big milestones in somebody's small business journey. Like once you can get into, you see your stuff on the grocery shelf, it's super satisfying.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk about, let's go a little deeper into that specific story just for a minute, because we'll have to ping the Hayes family and let them know we talked about them on the Riderflex podcast. Talk to me for a minute. So you got this stuff, and you and your husband are talking, and you're like, all right, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to pitch this to Hayes. Walk us through that pitch. I want to just visualize you calling them and then going down there and taking it, and they're tasting it. Walk me through how that
went. So it was an email at first. So yeah.
Did you know? Did you have a contact that they know you?
No, I just kind of went kind of cold calling in that
email.
sense.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So I just decided, hey, I'm going to hit them up. I'm going to tell them about my product, see if I can get a meeting. And I did. And Ryan and I met.
Somebody responded to your email.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, you know Hayes, but they're really supportive of local products. And, as as they should be. So it's really a nice thing. But met with them, and
who'd you meet with? Who'd you meet with?
Ryan Hayes.
Okay.
Yep. And he, talked to me a little bit about what I was doing. He also gave me a lot of pointers on how I was doing this. So it was really a pitch, but also just kind of a nice meeting to kind of talk to somebody in the grocery industry who could kind of give me some pointers. So we communicated for a few months, and finally, it was ready. So
so it took a couple of months to get it on the shelf.
It did. Shelf life testing for a frozen product is done in real time. They can't accelerate that. So I did have to go through some shelf life testing, which was going to be necessary for other grocery stores. So it's something I'd never even thought of, but I'm glad that he told me to do that. Yeah.
Are you like, don't you have to be like cleared through the FDA, or don't you have to like, what are all the rules around food production? And I'm guessing you don't have a commercial kitchen yet, do you? Or
I do. Yeah. I work out of a commercial kitchen in Platteville. It's owned by one of my mentors. She owns her own catering company, and she built a beautiful commercial kitchen on her house. And it's like my second home.
But those first shipments to Hayes, were you already in the commercial kitchen, or were you doing those from your house?
Yeah, you have to be out of a commercial kitchen in order to be licensed through the
That's
county.
what I thought. Okay.
Yep. And then it was an additional license through the state to be able to wholesale.
When you met with the Hayes boys, were they like, hey man, we'd love to buy your product, but you can't make this in your kitchen. Like, you got to go through. Is that how that worked?
Yeah. A lot of people, their first question is, where are you making this? Because there's a lot of regulations. We are not a meat or dairy product. So obviously there's added regulations on those where we're just veggies. So that was easy enough to navigate, but you definitely want to have your compliance and licensing in place before you try and, branch out, because it's just necessary.
So your biggest cash outlay when you're doing this startup, besides the risk of quitting your job and losing that income.
Thank you. Yes.
Your biggest cash outlay was the lease of the commercial kitchen and any licensing type FDA stuff. Is that right? Or am I missing?
Yeah, I would say licensing and then the lease. Like the licensing is definitely, because you have to go through courses as well to get your license. So it's a big time and financial commitment, but you have to have it.
And you guys had some cash set aside to do all this, or did you borrow some cash? How'd you make it financially?
Yeah. We really were, trying to find the most cost effective way to do this. So it was self-funded from the start. Yep.
Wow. So, okay. Yeah. And is it still that way? You guys bootstrapped it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it, we are not quite there looking for investors, but it's on the horizon. So
getting closer, huh?
Yeah, we're excited, and I wanted to have a few years of numbers to present. Once I was ready for that, so we're getting there.
Hey man, it's not like it's a hell of a lot different when you say, hey, my proof of concept is already there. It's on the shelf. I actually have people buying the product. I have reviews. I have followers.
Right.
It's in several different grocery chains. And by the way, I don't have any debt because I bootstrapped this thing from the beginning, and I haven't taken on any cash.
Yeah,
that's a lot more attractive for a potential investor than you just going in on it with a PowerPoint saying, I have an idea.
Listen to me. Yeah, it's to say it's cutthroat is a bit of an understatement. There's a lot of potential investors out there, but there's also a lot of small startups that have great potential, and so you're kind of running with a pack of people that are doing similar things to you are to what you're doing, and just trying to stand out.
Having those relationships with those people is a good thing, because who knows? I mean, maybe there's 3 other people and they're making product that's not exactly like yours, but it's meatless or whatever, and maybe you combine forces someday. I mean, who knows? I mean,
collaboration is key, and COVID, it sort of forced me to get online a lot, go to listen to webinars, join networking groups that have been, instrumental. It's been really
I would encourage you to talk to as many competitors as you possibly can, because you just never know. I mean, first of all, it's amazing to me. Entrepreneurs in general are very warm, sharing, giving people. I mean, even if you're a competitor, it's like you just talk to each other because
Right.
you know the struggle, right? You know the life, and so you can relate to the other person. So you just want to be friendly to them. You want to offer advice.
Yeah, I think you really said it right there. I mean, part of being an entrepreneur and successful is being able to have those conversations, being able to talk about your business to anybody, anytime. You have your one sentence pitch. Just have it on hand.
Yep.
And just have those conversations. You never know what's going to come out of them.
You never know. I mean, and you can't follow everybody's got advice for entrepreneurs, right? You should do this, you should do that. It's constant, right? But and you can't follow all of it. But if you listen closely enough, out of the 100 pieces of advice you get, there might be 2 or 3 in there that are pretty good that you might want to implement, right?
Just like in life. Yeah, just like in life, you can just take what you want and run with it.
I always love it when people, they'll talk to me about Riderflex and our recruiting firm. They're like, "Oh, you guys should try this. You should try that." And I'm just super nice. I'm always just like, "Oh, that's, thank you so much for your feedback. I appreciate it." Like,
and I will say there has been a ton of great ideas that I do have on a list that I always look back to, like, hey, remember that that idea? Maybe I should work on that.
Well, from a cash perspective, you just can't chase them all too, right?
And on that note, this term pivot came up a lot during the pandemic, but I like to say that I oscillate, so I can always come back to a good idea. But, you're always like constantly looking.
That.
Yeah,
I like that.
And you never want to leave something on the table.
You already did pivot a little bit. You started delivering direct to the consumer.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you were like, wait a minute, my margins are double versus selling to grocery store. This is okay. minus your delivery cost.
Well, and I wasn't there was a point where I didn't know if the farmers markets were going to continue. I didn't know if the grocery stores were going to stay open. There was so much uncertainty going on. Luckily, I was able to have a summer farmers market season and continue to work on my retail placements. And now we're in five grocery stores.
Tell us the stores you're at real quick and the towns those are in. And then let's also the website. I just want to make sure I get the URL correct, right? I want to make sure let's guide people to the right place.
Yeah.
So it's coloradocrummies.com.
You got it.
coloradocrummies.com. And you can also find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what grocery stores can you find them in?
Yeah. So we're at Hayes Market in Johnstown and Berthoud. We're at the Alfalfas in Longmont. We're part of it's called Nude Foods out of Boulder. They do zero waste grocery delivery. So we are sold through them as well. And then there's the Mountain Avenue Market in Fort Collins. So formerly the Fort Collins Food Co-op. But
did you open all those accounts yourself? It was you knocking on those doors, wasn't it?
It was. And really, I will tell you this. If you go on these stores' websites or a lot of these big chains, they will send you through a lot of application processes online, which is fine. But there is nothing that beats a face-to-face meeting with the manager of the grocery store. So I would say encourage everyone to just show up at those grocery stores with a sample, packaged very nicely and a bunch of your information, and get their information so you can follow up.
Yep. You hustled and opened those doors.
I'm always hustling.
You got to be the hustler to be an entrepreneur, right? And you weren't
true.
You weren't really a traditional salesperson. So learning how to have the sales skills to be able to open these doors and get these contracts signed or these agreements signed, that was a big deal for you.
It was. And, that kind of leads, it's something I wanted to talk about was I was lucky enough to be part of a Entrepreneurship Accelerator program in my early stages. And it was called E4All out of Longmont, Colorado. I actually met Harris at a farmer's market booth. He was right next to me. And we decided, we just got talking. He told me about the program. At that point, I didn't even know if I considered myself an entrepreneur. I wasn't really sure if I qualified, even though I was out there selling a product that I created and running a business that I owned. It was a strange term to refer to myself as.
Right.
So this accelerator program really provided a discipline and structure into my business, as well as countless contacts and mentors that I still communicate with, monthly. And it's just been very, very great.
What's the website for the accelerator?
Yeah. E4all.org.
E4all.org.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. We'll give them a little shout out on that.
Yeah. They are based out of Massachusetts, but they're starting their third accelerator program in Longmont. So they're starting to grow here as well.
How about that? Okay, very good. So what has been the toughest for you so far? What's been the hardest? Was it developing the product? Was it opening the doors for the grocery stores? Was it surviving the lack of cash after you quit your job? What's been the hardest thing for you?
I guess taking it too personally. This is my my creation, my business. It's really taking up a lot of my life space, if you will. But to take those criticisms kind of with a grain of salt, if you will. Like don't let them ruin your whole day, but find a learning opportunity there, which sounds super cliche and a lot easier said than done, but I'm still learning to do that. So I think that was probably the biggest struggle, is just the mental health aspect of being an entrepreneur, as well as just sort of, taking everything as someone else's opinion and not gospel.
It is, you're just so passionate about it, right? I mean, you've poured your whole life into it.
Yes.
And so much more than anybody can realize. Like, if you haven't been an entrepreneur and started your own business, it's really hard for Stephanie and I to describe to you the amount of emotion that goes into creating a business, right? And, it's really easy for somebody to go on Facebook or social media and say, oh yeah, this sucks, or why aren't you doing this, or whatever. It's so easy for them to do that when they haven't killed themselves, to get it going.
Right.
But you're right. You do have to learn. I was just listening to Joe Rogan talk about this with one of his guests on his podcast. And Rogan was saying, he's like, I just don't look at the comments anymore. He's like, I just can't. He goes, I have a product, I have followers. He goes, if I get caught up in trying to respond to anything negative and letting that affect me, it just brings me down. And so I just gotta keep moving forward.
Right. And it's always going to be a roller coaster. Like, ride those highs, and just don't even worry about the lows, because they're going to pass. And
and if you're popular enough, you're going to have people that like you and don't like you.
Right.
That's part of it.
It's a compliment. Yeah.
It's part of it. Hey, if you're getting people talking about your product, that's a win.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a win. So your family, I wanted to ask you about this. They're all still meat eaters, right? Like your parents, they're all
yes, they are. They've been, obviously super, super supportive. I'm sure there's a lot of sidecar conversations after I leave the dinner table. Thanksgiving's been interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And I will say this, all my in-laws are from Wisconsin, which is like Weld County times 100.
Right.
They, super, super supportive. And really the conversations you have with folks about a new way of eating or a new lifestyle that you've chosen are also super important to have, because you're educating your family about your choices and something they may have not thought about either. So again, have those conversations and
can you speak to it? Like, if you get like a meat eater that wants to debate you on meat versus veggie and the health, have you learned enough now to where you can hold your ground versus?
I absolutely, not through comments on social media, because I have stopped doing that. And I don't want to have something turn, from a constructive conversation to a, name calling match, which is hard to resist sometimes when you read some of this stuff. But I think I just, like you said, just need to, at the end of the day, this is my brainchild, and I am doing it. I love it. I feel passionate about what I'm doing, and enough people are around me to support.
Hey, and if you got enough people that are also passionate about it, buying your product, then hey, there it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't win them all.
So. You can't win them all, and it's not like you're out there bashing. The one thing I love about you so far, and the one thing I like about your product, it's not like you're bashing the people that do want to eat meat. You're not spending time saying, "Hey, you're wrong." You're just saying, "Hey, I'm doing this, and if you want to partake in my product, cool, great."
Right, and I would just say, have an open mind, like. Ask the questions, be curious, try something new. If it's not your cup of tea, don't worry about it. Move on to the next. It's not something that I feel like has to be browbeaten on everybody.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So towards the back end, I like to ask, a couple of kind of wrap up questions here. If you could call the young lady coming out of UNC, how old were you when you graduated? What were you, like 21, 22?
Oh yeah, no, took me 7 years to get my bachelor's,
Oh, you
but so yeah, so I was, what would that make me? 25, yeah.
25. Okay. It's too much partying for you back then.
Yeah,
Totally.
sorry. A lot of people go to college for 7 years, right?
Yeah, right.
They're called
hey,
doctors.
It was a good time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, but all part of the experience. And if I could go back, I may have told myself to study harder. I may have told myself to start my own business a lot sooner, because I knew that I had passion and drive, and I was just putting that into somebody else's pocket. Essentially, they were getting my my talents and my drive into their own company when I could have been building my own. But
I say something similar. People will say, they'll say, well, why did you start your own business? Why start Riderflex? And I'll say, listen, here's the deal. I spent most of my life making other people rich.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's so true.
And I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, thank you. And I won't, if I can, if everything goes well. I already have a couple other ideas that are brewing. So, and that's also part of being an entrepreneur that's really cool, is you're like, hey, I can't wait till my next idea, and the ball just keeps rolling.
Once you've tasted being an entrepreneur and you got a business going that actually produces revenue, and you're like putting checks in the bank, as soon as that happens, you're like, oh wow, this is like a drug. You're just like,
not bitter at all.
Wow, I need more of that. That's right. So good. Well, I'm happy for you. You're local, which I love. I have, now, what aisle do I find this product on? Where do I find it in Hayes? Because I mean, Hayes is like 2 blocks from my house. I know. So I go over there all the time. Where do I find it?
So it's in the frozen section. You've got your butcher, you've got your meat sections, and then we're on the vegetarian entrees frozen section. Yeah. So any grocery store will have us in the frozen, usually by other meat alternatives that will remain nameless, but you know who they are. So.
Do you go in and you're like looking for your shelf positioning, and you go, you're like, hey, how come I'm not right here?
Yeah, you have to be a little strategic about it. The packaging alone took us, 3 months to decide on, to find something affordable as well as impactful.
Gotcha. Well, I'm happy for you. Congratulations on what you've built. Really.
Thank you very much.
Stephanie, thank you for being on the Riderflex podcast.
Yes, thank you for your time, Steve.
ColoradoCrummies.com. I love it.
Got it.
If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone please share this with them. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviewing. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get information and pricing on the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.